We live in a world obsessed with noise. Louder headlines, bigger personalities, flashier lives, but every once in a while, a man appears who speaks softly and somehow echoes louder than all the rest. A man who doesn't chase fame, doesn't post for attention, doesn't need to prove anything to anyone, yet somehow he becomes one of the most beloved figures in the world. His name is Keanu Reeves, and this is not the story of an action star. This is the story of a human being, one who has walked through fire and come out quiet, kind, and unbelievably strong. We all have days we never forget. Some where everything clicks, when we feel unstoppable, and others that leave us broken, where the air feels heavier, where even breathing hurts. Keanu Reeves has lived both, and what makes his story so powerful is that he never tried to hide either. He didn't pretend to be perfect. He didn't use tragedy for attention. He simply lived through it with grace. But before we dive into the extremes of his life, the highest high and the lowest low, you need to understand where it all began. Keanu Charles Reeves was born in Beirut, Lebanon in 1964, to a British mother and an American father. He grew up mostly in Canada, where life was complicated. His father abandoned the family when Keanu was just 3 years old. He moved from city to city, school to school, struggled with dyslexia, felt disconnected. He wasn't the loudest in the room. He didn't fit in, but he found comfort in stories, in films, in performance. He wasn't chasing fame, he was chasing connection. His first roles were modest, commercials, low-budget films, but something about him stood out. There was a stillness, a sincerity. In 1994, speed turned him into a leading man. Then came The Matrix, a role that would redefine action cinema, philosophy, and special effects. By the early 2000s, Keanu Reeves was a global icon, but even then, he stayed grounded. He didn't move to Hollywood Hills. He didn't bathe in spotlight. He read poetry, rode the subway, took walks alone. He was different, and people noticed. He was the rare actor who could star in a billion-dollar franchise and still eat lunch alone on a park bench, unnoticed. That duality, fame and humility, tragedy and resilience, is what defines him. And in 2019, after decades of quiet dedication, something changed. The world that had once underestimated Keanu finally stopped to look and saw who he really was. That year would become something more than just another chapter in his career. It would become the moment where everything aligned, where the world celebrated not just what he had done, but who he had become. And so, before we show you the day that nearly destroyed him, let us take you first to the day the world fell in love with Keanu Reeves all over again. It had been decades of films, of silence, of watching the world change around him while he quietly remained the same. By 2019, Keanu Reeves had nothing left to prove. He had already survived Hollywood, already walked through fire and come out the other side. But what happened that year wasn't about proving anything. It was about the world finally seeing clearly. It started with a simple appearance. An invitation to speak at a video game conference, E3, in Los Angeles. Most actors would have sent in a video or a quick statement, but Keanu showed up, live. And as he walked onto that stage, dressed in black, walking slowly, smiling nervously, the crowd erupted. Not for a movie, not for a trailer, for him, Keanu Reeves. He was there to announce his role in the futuristic game Cyberpunk 2077. But what happened next, no one expected. As he was describing the game's world, filled with action, violence, chaos, he paused for a moment. That's when it happened. From the crowd, a single voice shouted, "You're breathtaking!" The room fell silent. Keanu looked out, stunned, then smiled the kind of smile you can't fake, and he replied, pointing back, "You're breathtaking! You're all breathtaking!" The room exploded. The moment was instantly immortalized. Clips went viral, memes flooded the internet, and in a culture obsessed with irony, cynicism, and sarcasm, something raw had broken through. Sincerity, kindness, joy. But why did that moment hit so hard? Because it wasn't scripted, it wasn't manufactured, it was real. And Keanu's response wasn't a punchline, it wasn't a brand move. It was gratitude, pure, vulnerable gratitude. That moment reminded the world of something rare, that kindness is still cool, that humility can still shine, that even the quietest among us can become legends, not by yelling, but by listening. But the magic of 2019 didn't stop there. Keanu also had another film coming out, John Wick, Chapter 3, Parabellum, and it exploded. Critics loved it, audiences devoured it, it broke box office records. The same man who was once mocked for being too wooden in his acting had become the face of a new kind of action cinema, sleek, emotional, brutal, and beautiful. He trained relentlessly, did his own stunts, respected every member of the crew. From the camera operator to the guy serving lunch, people on set said the same thing over and over. He says good morning to everyone. He picks up his own trash. He takes time to remember your name. That year, he also lent his voice to Toy Story 4, playing Duke Kaboom, a Canadian stuntman with more heart than ego. It was perfect. Children loved him. Adults respected him. The internet couldn't get enough of him. He was no longer just the guy from The Matrix. He was Keanu, a cultural icon, a meme, a movement. But here's what made that year so special. He didn't change to become famous again. The world changed around him. It finally caught up to what Keanu had always been. In a time where every headline is scandal or spectacle, Keanu represented something deeper, quiet confidence, survivor energy, a reminder that you can suffer and still stay soft. And while the lights were bright, Keanu stayed the same. He still lived modestly, still donated millions anonymously, still took time to help strangers. One viral photo showed him sitting alone on a bench eating a sandwich. No entourage, no attention, just a man resting. That image became symbolic. They called him Sad Keanu. But the truth, he wasn't sad. He was peaceful, content. 2019 was the year Keanu Reeves became Hollywood's heartbeat. The year the industry and the internet wrapped its arms around him and said, "We see you, we hear you, we love you." And he, as always, simply smiled and gave it back. The man who had once lost everything now stood in front of millions and gave them hope. That was the best day of Keanu Reeves's life. Not because of fame, not because of money, but because for the first time he was fully seen and fully loved, not for a role, but for who he truly was. Pain has a way of showing up when you least expect it, not with warnings, not with time to prepare, just silence. And then everything shatters. For Keanu Reeves, that moment came not on a film set, not in front of cameras, but in the quietest corner of his private life. And it left a scar that would never fully heal. In the late 1990s, Keanu wasn't just on the rise, he was already a star. The Matrix had launched him into a new galaxy of fame. He had money, success, recognition. But more importantly, he had love. Her name was Jennifer Syme, an actress and assistant in the film industry. She wasn't famous, she wasn't loud, she was kind, she was real. And Keanu loved her deeply. They weren't a tabloid couple, they kept their life private, simple. And in 1999, their lives were about to change forever. Jennifer was pregnant, Keanu was going to be a father. They were excited, nervous, but hopeful. They decorated a nursery, chose baby names, dreamed of the little girl who was about to enter their lives. Her name would be Ava Archer Syme Reeves. But at 8 months pregnant, Jennifer stopped feeling movement. Something felt wrong. They rushed to the hospital, and in one crushing moment their dream died. Ava was stillborn. No parent should ever have to bury their child. No words exist for that kind of grief. No logic, no comfort, no fix. Keanu was devastated. Jennifer was broken. They tried to hold on, but the pain was too deep. Their relationship fell apart. They separated quietly, respectfully. But something inside both of them changed forever. Keanu, the quiet warrior, was now carrying the heaviest weight of his life. 16 months later, tragedy struck again. Jennifer Syme was driving home from a party in Los Angeles. Some say she had been drinking. Some say she was still struggling with depression. What's certain is this: she lost control of her car. It hit 3 parked vehicles. She was thrown from the seat and she died instantly. She was just 28 years old. Gone. Just like that. When the news broke, the media tried to turn it into a story. But Keanu, he said nothing. Not to defend himself, not to explain, not to cry in public. He disappeared. He mourned the woman he had loved and the daughter he never got to hold. For most people, that would have ended everything. It would have broken them, hollowed them out, turned them cold. But Keanu endured. He didn't escape the pain. He carried it, day after day, quietly. And when he eventually returned to the public eye, something had changed. He was softer, more still, more present. He had always been kind, but now his kindness came with depth, with experience, with knowing what true loss feels like. He once said in an interview, "Grief changes shape, but it never ends. People I've loved are gone, and I miss being part of their lives and them being part of mine." He didn't fake strength. He never claimed to be healed. He simply kept going. Keanu Reeves never weaponized his pain. He never sought pity, never told his story to sell a book or earn applause. He just kept living, because for him, that's what strength really is. Not pretending the pain isn't there, but carrying it with grace. The worst day of Keanu Reeves's life wasn't just about loss. It was about surviving the kind of heartbreak that doesn't have words. And he did it without losing his humanity. They say pain either destroys you or defines you. For Keanu, it did neither. It deepened him. And somehow, out of all that darkness, he became a beacon, proof that you can survive anything and still be kind, still be gentle, still believe in love. He didn't just come back from that day, he came back stronger. But the silence in his eyes, it still speaks, because no matter how far he rises, he never forgets where he fell.